I was born 50 miles east of Asheville, in a place where the mountains roll like waves and the air smells like wood smoke and wildflowers. My name's Danielle Mercer, and I've lived in this town all my life. Barring a couple of years, I spent in Raleigh, working a cybersecurity job that made me lose 13 pounds and most of my faith in humanity. Now I work for myself. Freelance digital security, mostly for small businesses who don't want to get wiped out by a teenager in Estonia. I'm 36. I've got no kids, no husband, and honestly, I sleep better because of it. I've got a border collie named Goose, a sister named Lisa who pretends not to worry about me, and a mother who calls every Thursday night no matter what storm's rolling through. I like systems. I like silence. Mostly, I like the clean order of things when no one's messing with them. I don't talk much, which means when I do, people sometimes think I'm a man over the phone. My voice is low, not deep, just flat, like I don't waste oxygen on decoration. I've corrected people about the sir thing more times than I can count, but after a while it became background noise. An irritant like a pebble in your shoe. Until it was. There's something they don't warn you about when you work for yourself, the bureaucracy. You spend your life defending systems, but you still have to dance with insurance, licensing boards, taxes. That morning, the sun hadn't made it over the ridge yet when I brewed my coffee, black, no sugar, and sat down with a headset and a list of calls I'd been putting off for weeks. The worst was the insurance claim. I'd filed it over a month ago. Lightning hit the transformer 2 blocks down and fried my modem, router, and the backup server I used for client archives. The policy covered it. At least, it was supposed to. The hold music sounded like it was being fed through a tin can, but it didn't matter. I had time. Goose lay curled under the desk. The coffee had cooled, but I hadn't noticed. Then a man with a syrupy voice picked up the line. "Good morning, sir. Thank you for holding. My name's Bryce," I exhaled. Calm, even. "Actually, I'm not a sir. I'm a woman, of course, sir. I meant apologies." My eyebrow lifted. It wasn't the first time. I let it go. "I'm calling about a claim I filed 5 weeks ago. Number ends in 427. I haven't received confirmation, and I need to replace my backup server before next invoice cycle." I gave him my name, address, policy number. Heard him tapping. He hummed lightly, an off-key little sound like he was doing me a favor just breathing. "Let me check on that for you, sir." I blinked slow. "Ma'am." "Pardon," I said. "It's ma'am. I already mentioned that." "Oh," pause, keyboard clicking. "Yes, sir." Something in me twitched. Not anger, exactly. Just a shift. Like a hairline crack deep inside the drywall. I leaned back in my chair and glanced at Goose. He thumped his tail once against the rug, sensing something. The call dragged on. Bryce explained how the claim had been flagged for manual review, how it should have been resolved, how he couldn't tell me when. Every other sentence he tossed in another "sir." I corrected him. He ignored it, not once, not twice. 6 times. On the 7th, "It's ma'am," I said, flat but firm. Right. My apologies, sir." Slipped my mind. He chuckled like this was some charming little misunderstanding, like I should be amused, maybe grateful he bothered to answer the damn phone. Then it happened. "I just need you to confirm your business name, sir." The way he dragged that word, it wasn't sloppy. It was pointed. Deliberate. I went quiet. No breath, no movement. Just sat there, headset snug over my ears, listening to the buzz of my own heartbeat in the silence. I spoke slow, casual. "You seem to have trouble with basic comprehension, Bryce. I beg your pardon, I told you I'm a woman. Several times. You've ignored me over and over. So either you're too dense to process correction or you're doing it on purpose." "Look, sir, ma'am, whatever. I didn't mean anything by it." Whatever. That was the word that did it. That flick of dismissal. Like I didn't matter. Like my voice, my identity, my existence, none of it deserved care. Something cracked all the way through. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't curse. I just smiled so hard my cheekbones ached and said, "Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your help, ma'am." He went silent. "Ma'am," I said again, sweet as poison. "I'm not a ma'am," Bryce snapped. "Oh, really? Hard to tell over the phone? You sure do sound like one." "What the hell? I mean, come on, it's a little confusing. You've got that soft, friendly voice. You're not exactly commanding. Maybe take some voice lessons, it might help." "You're being hostile," he hissed, "and you're being careless." Then I hung up. Goose barked once, startled by the click. I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence swell around me. The trees outside stood motionless like they were holding their breath. I didn't feel victorious. Not yet. I felt steady. Like a pendulum finally catching its rhythm. Because that wasn't a mistake. It wasn't about my voice. It was about erasing me. About control. The kind of thing that slips under your skin, makes you question yourself by degrees, until you don't speak up anymore. I closed my laptop. My hand hovered over it like I could still feel the heat of his condescension buzzing through the keys. For a long time, I sat there thinking about every time I held my tongue, swallowed the slight, let something slide because it was small or not worth the trouble. It had built up like rust beneath paint. I'd cleaned up after people like Bryce my whole life. Technically competent, morally sloppy. Think they're doing you a favor just by showing up, but I'd had enough. I didn't want revenge. Not yet, I wanted accountability, and I knew exactly how to get it. Because while Bryce saw a voice on a phone line, I saw a network ready to be unraveled. I reached for my second cup of coffee, cold and bitter, and smiled. The rules had changed. Let the games begin. My name's Rowan Grayson. I'm 37, born and bred in the rainy heart of Brushwood, Oregon. I've got the voice of a baritone jazz singer and the unfortunate luck of having it mistaken for a man's in nearly every phone call I make. I've learned to let it slide. Usually. But when I first called Silver Creek Insurance to get my roof claim processed after the spring hailstorm smashed through my living room like a pack of angry gods, the agent on the other end, Blake, kept twisting the knife. Yes, sir. I understand, sir. Let me look into that policy, sir. I corrected him. Patiently at first, I'm actually a woman. Silence. Then, of course, sir, so I started throwing it back. Yes, ma'am, I chirped sweetly each time he spoke. Thank you for checking on that, ma'am. I appreciate your help, ma'am. His voice turned sharp halfway through the call. I'm not a woman. I smiled into the receiver. Yes, ma'am. He hung up. That should have been the end of it. A petty little victory to nurse on a cold evening with a glass of Pinot in hand. But I'd barely had time to enjoy it before the retaliation started. 2 days later, I receive a letter, cold, corporate, razor cut. Your insurance claim has been denied due to inconsistencies in your policy documentation. Inconsistencies? I called them. I got someone else this time, a Rebecca. She sounded young and overly rehearsed. I'm sorry, sir, but the documents on file don't match the current records. I gripped the phone tighter, the plastic biting into the crook of my shoulder. I'm not a sir. And I have all the documentation right here, stamped and dated. Want me to email it? I can't accept direct emails, sir. You'll need to file an appeal through the customer portal. 3 sirs in 1 sentence. She was doing it on purpose. I felt it in her tone, mocking, delighted. Blake must have told her. Hell, maybe the whole call center was laughing about it by now. I hung up. My hands shook as I sat down in front of my laptop. Fine, they wanted formal, they could choke on formal. I filed the appeal, included scans of everything, photos of the damage, signed paperwork, even a time-stamped video of me walking through the ruined living room. The next morning, I got another email. This appeal has been rejected due to unauthorized photo enhancements that invalidate the claim evidence. They called my phone again. A different agent, but the same tone, sarcastic, syrupy. We take fraud very seriously, sir. I felt my face go hot. I'm not committing fraud, and I'm not a man. A pause. I could hear her chewing gum. If you say so, sir. I slammed the phone down. Turns out Silver Creek had flagged my account. Blake must have logged a complaint. Harassment, probably. Anything to cover his own arrogance. And now they'd weaponized the correction I'd made, a simple, truthful correction, into a reason to gaslight me. I drove down to the local office, face-to-face this time, just to see if they had the guts to say it in person. The woman at the front desk looked up from her monitor. Name? Rowan Grayson. She typed it, her eyes flicked up. Oh, that's you, her smile faltered. How can I help you today? Sir, I froze. You serious? She gave a little shrug. That's the name on the account now. Gender, male. I gritted my teeth. That's falsified. You'll have to file paperwork to correct it, but that'll reset your claim date. Another fake smile. Policies must remain unaltered for 90 days before claims processing. I felt something inside me crack, quiet, deep. A slow kind of heartbreak. They de-changed my gender in the system. On purpose, to delay the claim. To punish me, I left before I could scream. Back home, I sat on the couch in the semi-dark among boxes of soaked books and broken glass. My hands were in my hair. My phone screen blinked in the dim light, no new messages. I'd called my cousin, my old boss, even my ex, Myra. No one called back. Maybe they didn't believe me. Maybe they thought I'd made this personal. Stupid. Childish. Had I? I buried my face in my hands. What if I'd just let it go? Corrected him once, left it there? What if my little joke started this avalanche? But then I remembered the way Blake snapped, I'm not a woman. As if being mistaken for one was a violation. I wasn't wrong. I was just tired of swallowing it, all of it. Still, the damage was real. My house was half unlivable. No claim meant no payout. And if the new policy date kicked in, I'd have to wait 3 months just to restart the process. That night, I barely slept. The floor creaked with every turn of my body, the soaked drywall groaned above my head. I dreamed of sinking under paperwork beneath voices that called me sir again and again until even I stopped correcting them. The next morning, I visited a lawyer, Carmen Yi. She looked over the claim, the emails, the altered gender marker. She frowned. This feels targeted. It is, I said. I corrected a phone rep. He didn't like that. She leaned back, eyes narrowed. You want to sue? I hesitated. I wasn't sure how far I wanted to go. I just wanted them to stop. But Carmen didn't hesitate. Discrimination, intentional falsification, gender-based retaliation. She tapped the table. They think people won't fight back. I nodded. A sliver of fire lit behind my ribs. We filed a complaint with the state insurance board. Attached transcripts, call logs, even a public post I made that started getting traction online. That's when the real retaliation began. Silver Creek sent me a cease and desist, claimed defamation, demanded I take down my post, and that I'd made malicious attacks on individual employees. Then came the calls, not from them, from numbers I didn't recognize, blocked, private, heavy breathing, laughter. One night around 11, I picked up by accident a man's voice. Familiar. Still playing the victim, huh? Ma'am, he laughed, then silence. I dropped the phone. It thudded against my bare foot. Cold fear trickled through my bones. They weren't just mocking me now, they were watching. I pulled the curtains shut, scared in my own damn home. I wanted to stay quiet, delete the posts. Let Carmen handle it from afar. But the next day, I found a flyer in my mailbox. No envelope, just typed words, people like you shouldn't push their luck. No name, no logo, just that. I stood in the driveway, flyer crumpled in one fist, heart thudding. I wasn't just dealing with bureaucratic cruelty. This had turned into something darker. And I felt completely alone. The little victories I'd clung to, mocking Blake on the phone, making one post go viral, even getting Carmen on my side, they all emptied out of me like breath in cold air. They had power. I had a leaky roof and a voice no one believed. That night, I unplugged the phone, sat in the middle of the living room floor, surrounded by tarped furniture and damp silence. I didn't cry. I just stopped moving. There's a point when anger becomes exhaustion. When the thing you're fighting slithers inside you and makes you question whether you ever had the right to fight at all. That's where I was, curled under a blanket, listening to the wind scrape the sides of my ruined house, close to giving up. And in that moment, raw, emptied, I finally understood what this fight was costing me. Not just money, not just a roof, but something deeper. They were stealing my voice, and I wasn't sure if I could get it back. The quiet after humiliation is a strange kind of noise. It hums in your bones and seeps into your skin like cold water. That night, after the customer service debacle, I sat in my one-bedroom apartment in Roswell, legs folded beneath a scratchy wool blanket I hadn't washed in weeks. My phone lay on the table, screen cracked, silent now. No new calls, no apologies, just the occasional buzz from a promotional email I couldn't bring myself to delete. My name is Erin Malin, 36, female. I live alone above an old bakery that always smells like burnt sugar. And for weeks, all I'd tried to do was correct one man's mistake. One careless, maddening man named Gary Lorman. Gary, my assigned case rep from Fernline Mutual. Gary, who had called me Sir 8 times in a single phone call, even after I corrected him. Even after I tried to laugh it off, then got firm, then got desperate. I'd tried everything short of yelling. And when I couldn't take it anymore, I flipped it on him, called him ma'am with syrupy sweetness until he snapped and hung up. I thought I'd feel powerful. Vindicated. Instead, I felt like a child who'd thrown a rock at a passing car. He made me question if I even existed. Whatever dignity I had left fluttered out of me with that disconnect tone. I pressed my forehead to the window pane. The glass pressed cool against the bruise of my pride. Shame lingered longer than it should have. But deeper than the sting of being misgendered was the ache of being unheard. That call wasn't just one mistake. It was every moment in my life when my voice got mistaken for someone else's. Every boardroom where they looked past me. Every time a student's parent said, "May I speak to the teacher, not the assistant?" And still, I didn't want revenge just to feel better. I wanted justice, not some dramatic payback. Just acknowledgement. I stared out at the narrow street below, waiting for something inside me to shift. It came weeks later. I'd filed a formal complaint with Fernline Mutual. Cookie-cutter email response. No follow-up. Then one Monday afternoon, while scrolling through forums for policyholders like the bitter, stubborn woman I've clearly become, I saw a thread titled "Gary Lorman called me ma'am too." I clicked. Turns out I wasn't the only one. People, mostly older men, wrote about Gary being condescending, disrespectful, patronizing. A few even said he purposely misgendered them after being corrected. But unlike my story, they'd been heard, apologies were sent, refunds issued. In one case, a rep even called a customer personally to apologize. None of them were women. I sat back. A chill crawled across my scalp. He wasn't careless. He was deliberate. Gary's flaw wasn't ignorance, it was contempt. I stared at the screen, heart thudding. Suddenly every yes sir echoed differently in my head. It wasn't just persistence. It was mockery, a game, like I was some unworthy interruption in his day. My fingers twitched. I clenched them into fists. I'd tried civility, mockery, complaints, and all I'd done was play his game. But I wasn't playing anymore. The night air tasted different when you breathe without fear. I opened the window wide and let Roswell's quiet drift in. I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt sharpened. That night I traced every thread of Gary's career I could find: public info, networking sites, employee review forums. I learned he sat on a training panel for new hires, that he once ran a diversity workshop, that he co-authored an article titled Professional Speech, Precision and Respect in Customer Interactions. I laughed, loud, bitter, free. The hypocrisy wasn't just offensive, it was an opportunity. I pulled out my journal, flipped to a clean page, and wrote one sentence in bold, black ink: hold up a mirror. Let him see. The plan took time. I'd need to be careful, calculated. I started documenting everything, every call, every email. I made another complaint, this time through an alias. Again, he misgendered me. Again, I saved the recording. Then I looped 3 of us together, myself and 2 of the men who'd also complained, to file a formal grievance with the company's Equal Access Division. All with proof, all with contrast. And I volunteered under a new name to be part of a secret shopper experience with Fernline's training review program. I'd act as a prospective client. I requested a call, and I requested Gary. I met the moment with clarity. I didn't want him fired. I wanted him exposed. The day of the call, I wore my sharpest blazer. I applied lipstick, my shade of red, the kind that says I don't flinch anymore. I lit a candle in the corner, rosemary and smoke, and sat upright. The phone rang. I answered. Hello, this is Gary from Fernline Mutual. How can I assist you today, sir? And I smiled. But this time, I didn't snap. I didn't mock. I'd learned something about power. It's not in how loud you speak. It's in how still you stay when someone else expects you to break. The conversation unfolded, and for every time he erred, I met it with a calm correction. Actually, I'm a woman. He stumbled, pushed forward, doubled down, and I kept my voice feather-soft, calm, exact. It would all be documented, observed by an internal quality analyst. Compared to other calls, I had created contrast, and contrast shows cracks. By the end, he was flustered, less poised, his words rushed and crooked. When the call ended, I exhaled slow, steady air. This wasn't reaction anymore. This was precision. As I clicked off the call, I ran my fingers across the grain of the wooden desk. The surface felt warm, grounding. It reminded me of my father's workbench and how he used to say, measure twice, cut once. I'd been measuring too long. Now I was ready to cut. No fear, no turning back. Act 3, the unmasking. I stood in the echoing stillness of my tiny office in Dahlia Cove, fingers perched lightly on the headset's ear cups like a pianist moments before a concerto. This, right here, was the moment I had prepared for: weeks of careful notes, hours of recorded calls, and one little plan stitched together with the thinnest thread of patience. His name was Leonard Bishop. 32, nasal voice, smug laugh. Worked for Moondale Mutual Insurance, a bloated wreck of a company that treated its customers like cattle and its employees even worse. He'd spoken to me 6 times over the past month for a simple claim on storm damage. 6 times he called me sir, even after I corrected him each time. Yes, it stung, but it was more than that. It was the way his voice grated out sir with an extra edge, like he enjoyed it. He didn't just ignore me, he erased me. My name, my voice, my identity. You people all sound the same, he once muttered just low enough to think I wouldn't hear. So I built this moment. Ready, Rhea? My friend Jonah's voice came over the private chat line. I smiled. Light the match. We built a mock client profile, a woman named Elaine Marin, complete with a plausible policy, fake ID, and a computer-generated, highly realistic voice filter. Elaine was designed to be the client from hell, impatient, high maintenance, and most importantly, insistent that she be treated with respect. Male agents would be randomly assigned. We prayed Leonard picked up. He did. Moondale Mutual, this is Leonard speaking. How can I assist you today, sir? He hadn't even listened. Oh my God, Elaine's voice snapped. I watched the waveform spike across the screen. I'm a woman. What is wrong with you? I'm sorry, ma'am, Leonard replied. It was just a figure of speech? No, it wasn't, she hissed. Jonah watched the call live, jotting Leonard's every word alongside timestamps. I couldn't stop smiling. Elaine grew more difficult. I'm going to need a supervisor. Now, I don't think that's necessary now. Leonard transferred the line to a supervisor, not knowing Jonah had already alerted Moondale's HR with a carefully worded packet that included excerpts from my real calls, recorded legally through my mobile provider's archiving, and this fresh bit of insubordination. I waited. By Friday, Jonah texted me just 3 words: he's suspended pending review. That night, I walked alone to the dunes behind my tiny seaside apartment. Wind swept cold across my cheeks, but I didn't shiver. Salt curled in the air like a forgotten lullaby. I felt hollow and whole. Funny how revenge never feels like you think it will. It doesn't roar with victory, it breathes. Saturday morning, I got a call. A woman introduced herself in clipped tones as Marian Dobbins, Director of Employee Conduct for Moondale. Miss Holloway, I want to thank you for what you brought to our attention. We've reviewed the recordings and internal complaints. Frankly, she hesitated, then cleared her throat. Mr. Bishop's behavior was not only inappropriate, it was habitual. He's been terminated. I don't want him blacklisted, I said. I just wanted him to stop. There was a pause. You've given us that chance. I hung up, unsure how to feel, with satisfaction warming slowly in my gut like the first real coffee of the morning. Days passed. The wind shifted. Rain kissed the coast in slow, sleepy drizzles. Then, one afternoon, I stopped for gas and spotted a familiar profile across the lot. Leonard, gray hoodie, face lowered. He came out of a convenience store with a lottery ticket in one hand and a bitter expression smeared across his face. I don't know what possessed me. I got out of the car and walked straight toward him. "Excuse me," I said softly. He turned too fast. Yeah, his eyes narrowed. He didn't recognize me. I leaned just close enough for him to meet my gaze. "You still think only men raise their voice?" I asked. His face drained to chalk. He stared at me for a full 5 seconds, mouth opening then shutting. His voice cracked. "You ruined my life." "No," I said, "you did that all by yourself." His mouth curled like old paper. "This is all because I called you, sir?" "You're that sensitive?" "No," I said again, "I'm that loud." I turned before he could speak. Let the silence crackle behind me. That night, I didn't dream of him. I dreamt of my grandmother. Her voice, her laugh, her ochre apron smeared with flour and fire. I remembered sitting at her table when I was 11, crying because a teacher kept calling me young man. She looked me dead in the face and said, "Ria Sabrina Holloway, the world will always try to rename you. You just don't let it finish the sentence." I used to think surviving meant staying quiet. Now I know, sometimes, it means speaking up loud enough that even the ones who wouldn't listen hear you as they fall. Leonard will land on his feet. People like him usually do. But maybe, just maybe, the next time he picks up a phone, he'll think, really think, before assuming what someone is just by how they sound. As for me, I bought myself a new desk chair. Velvet, deep plum, supple beneath my fingertips, soft but fierce, like me. I kept the headset, though, wore it like a crown. And every time the line clicked alive, I whispered, "This is Ria. How can I help? Let them decide who I am now."